Listen to this television commercial.
Whatever gets you through the night.
John decided we should move in together.
It was an absolute joy and a pleasure. It was just Dad and May, and it was just a happy, happy time. Especially in some of the photographs, you can see that May took of us, of Dad and I together.
I seem to be the guy in New York that all the Englishmen say hi to, you know.
Well, I got to help you out a little bit here. I first want to know, before we get involved with each other for the short time we're going to talk, do you have a sense of humor?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Who's in the hot seat? We got May Pang, and May Pang has a new documentary coming out called The Lost Weekend, a love story. It comes out April 13th. I'll make sure those links are down below. Don't touch that dial. Okay, May, thank you for being here. And you know what? I'm going to ask you some questions because I did some investigation stuff and I could have my facts wrong and you're here to correct me. But in the meantime, we got The Lost Weekend, a love story. It explores your relationship with John Lennon. And it wasn't it's called the infamous Lost Weekend, but it really wasn't a lost weekend because John made great music. Mind Games, one of my Walls and Bridges, which is a fantastic album. And even a throwback to the people he loved, the rock and roll album, the cover album. There's a lot of good stuff. It wasn't so lost.
It wasn't so lost.
No.
You know what it was? I got to tell you, everybody's asked me to, John picked it. And I know, I remember him saying to me, you're not going to like, people ask me, I just call it The Lost Weekend. First off, because they were always referring to him about his drunken party and, what fun he was having and getting thrown out of places. So he says, I got tired of people asking me, what was it like? So I just said, The Lost Weekend. And remember, a lot of people, they may not know it now, but there was a movie called The Lost Weekend about a guy who was always partying, drunk, and that's what it was called. It was called The Lost Weekend with Ray Milland. So
one woman loved him too much to let him lose it. Another wanted him enough to take him without it.
You do like me a little, don't you, honey?
Why, Natch, Gloria, Natch.
That's where it goes. And a lot of the, obviously the Gen Zers would not know this unless you're a real movie buff, and some other people may not know it. So now it's become one of those phrases and tags where you go, oh, I had a lost weekend. And it's turned into that. So, I realized there's so much going on here. And that's really where that came from. And we did a lot of work. And it wasn't as lost as everybody thought. It was easier to be said that way because he John used metaphors all the time and that was his way. But if you really think about it, if you really read the stuff, you know that it was only the same, nights that he was drunk, they keep putting it back into the press.
Yeah.
And when you put it back in the press and you keep reading the same thing, it sounds like this whole time was him doing that.
It was a movie I remember a while ago, and it was on made for TV, and they showed a guy playing John Lennon, and they show his, I forget what the movie's called. And maybe
was it the love story of John and Yoko love story?
Yeah, and I felt like they exaggerated him. They made him more like a character. It didn't seem like what he would be like to me. Especially they showed it.
He was constantly got angst, and this was like
they made him like angry. They made him like when he lost his glasses, like he's like this. They made him like this such a character.
Well, the thing about him losing his glasses, I will say he would have gotten upset, but he was drunk, so it wouldn't have been that upset. But he couldn't see. Nobody realized he was very, very blind.
Yeah.
And so when he lost his glasses, which I found out later that Tommy Smothers' wife found them and auctioned them off instead of returning to us, I said, well, isn't that interesting? Why didn't she call us and say, here, I found them for you? But, oh, well. So
right.
Yeah. So, we were there and people don't realize that as he's being photographed, and you should know this, and anybody who takes photographs, when they do that flash, oh my God, you can't see it, especially near nighttime. It's like 100 photographers are flashing away and you're just going, oh, hello, help me. And then he can't see, he's drunk. And then you have Harry Nielsen screaming, come on, let's do this. It was a night and I'm trying to hold the fort, So.
Yeah. And you're a kid, really. Now when you look back at it, you're just a kid, 23. What were you during that time?
Yes, 23 at that moment.
Let's go a little bit back because I didn't realize you were working for Alan Klein. As much as a Beatle fan, I didn't realize you worked in the office, and you have a lot of background. A lot of people, this movie's going to show all that, the
I
documentary.
know a lot of people didn't know. They thought I just came out of nowhere and I just plopped myself in there. No, yeah, I was working in the office. I started in, oh, I hate saying it, it hurts. 1969. It's weird, just to say that, to say, because he had just gotten the Apple account, where he administrate all the stuff.
Mhm.
And he also had, I was working on, I love this part. I love working in the music publishing. He had the Cags catalog, which is the Sam Cooke catalog. He had the Rolling Stone catalog. He had the Cameo Parkway catalog. Now he's got the Apple catalog that he's in. So it was a learning curve. Whatever the business is, that, whatever the deal was, I don't know. But what I was dealing was more of, what was going on in the publishing world, and looking at people wanting license to record songs. And, one of the biggest for us was probably when George Harrison's Something, that was a great seeing every day. It was like another license came in, request for them to do the song. It was good.
How did you hook up with Alan Klein's?
Well, that was an easy one. I was looking for a job. I couldn't stand, I hate saying it, but I was not good in school. I was in academic courses. I knew nothing, no secretarial, no nothing. And I quit college after a year. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to the employment agencies. Back in those days, you go in, what could you do? I fill out the form, nothing. I mean, there was nothing I really knew how to do, except maybe pick up the phone, be a receptionist. That's about it. So I remember they sent me out to being a receptionist for a Japanese bicycle company. And I thought, okay, Japanese, that was still hard to take. My mother did not want to buy anything that was Japanese, because at that time she was still feeling the pains from the World War II, because her village was ransacked, and it was terrible. So here I am, when every time she saw anything made in Japan, it was like, oh no. I'm so glad that it's not like that anymore, but at that time it was hard.
Yeah.
So I come downstairs, meet my girlfriend who's standing by the directory, and she said, you know what's in this building? I said, what? She goes, Apple Records. I said, what? Are you kidding? The Beatles? Apple Records. I go right to the directory, I look up, and I went, oh, yes, it is. Okay, I'm going to go upstairs. And she goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to go upstairs and ask them if they have an opening for a job. And they said, are you crazy? I said, where am I? I don't have a job. If they tell me no, I'm still where I am. So what's the big deal? So I went upstairs. She says, you're crazy. She left me. And I went upstairs. And I remember getting off the 41st floor. It was pretty quiet at the moment. And the woman said, who later becomes the person I work with and for. And I said, she goes, can I help you? I'm still looking for a job. No, nothing. And just at that moment, and I'm standing there, and she goes, what are you looking at? And I said, just wondering, do the Beatles ever come there? That's that line, and you see, she just chuckled. She goes, no. And at that very moment, there are two doors on either side of her desk that all of a sudden everybody was filing out of there. I mean, it was just hustling and bustling. I'm going, what just happened? It was like Grand Central Station. And it turned out that I did not know that it was lunchtime, and everybody was coming out. And she just happened to yell, she goes, this girl needs a job. Any openings? And this guy turned around and says, come back after lunch. Right? And I said, okay. And I waited, and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what lunch hour was, because I thought lunch hours were at 12. This was now after 1 o'clock. And I went up, and I got interviewed by him, some other people in the royalties department. They said, can you type? I said, yes. Can you do this? Yes. Couldn't do any of it. I was like, okay. And they said, well, can you start work next week? I said, sure. And I started in the music business like the following week. I was so happy. I was there maybe a month, and they saw how hard I was working. I come in early just to try and learn everything. That I implore to everyone. Just try and go in there and do your best. Don't, I wanted to learn. And they actually came back to me and said, do you have any other friends like you? And I got my other girlfriend a job.
How did
So
she do? Did she last?
she lasted,
She
and
lasted, okay.
she was in one place. They moved me around. They
Mhm.
put me with the legal department. They like me there. Then they go, no, you can handle this over here. They got all different things. And then in comes John and Yoko one day. And that's where it all began.
That's
And
where it all began.
John decided we should move in together. We ended up finding the perfect apartment. Can you imagine? I was 23.
That was the wonderful May Pang, and we'll be releasing more from this interview with May during the week. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell to be notified so you don't miss that when we upload that to YouTube. April 13th, The Lost Week in a Love Story will be premiering at a theater near you. So I'll put links down below and you can click right there to find out where that is playing. In the meantime, you can catch all our episodes in VIP All Access Patreon. Check that out. Remember, kids, it's only rock and roll, and we like it. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your time. Until then, I'll see you all next week. And remember, who loves you, baby? We do. All our episodes are streaming on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just look up Artist on Record Store and ADIKA Live.